when my son Sean was in high school, there were some students that it was their senior year and they literally damaged the school. I don't know why people do these kinds of things, right? This is your way of celebrating. I don't know what these kids were thinking. But in any case, they did all sorts of damage. And they even had a totem pole at this school. They damaged that. So the kids were obviously, they were still allowed to graduate, but they couldn't walk in the graduation ceremony. Now, I'm thinking if that was my kid, there would have been a lot more consequences than that. I couldn't even believe when I heard this, actually read it, that all the parents, not some of them, not most of them, every single one of them got together and hired an attorney to try to stop the school from preventing them from walking in the graduation ceremony. I was in absolute shock. You know, and this was 20 years ago. I mean, maybe longer, 22 years ago. I couldn't believe that there were parents out there like that. Really? This is what you're teaching your, little Johnny, that, he makes a mistake and you come running in with a lawyer? I mean, this is when I really started to be concerned for this world, honestly. I mean, yeah, okay, help your kids with certain things, but when they do something like that, they make a decision, and then the consequence is that you come in and save them. I don't understand that at all. I never really have. And I'm not saying I'm, Miss Perfect Parent, obviously, but we cannot remove every obstacle. And of course, that story's extreme, right? But, we can't prevent life from happening to them as much as we want to. I mean, I remember when Jamie was first born, I remember holding her and knowing for sure, that I could teach her what she needed to know. That, she's my daughter. Of course, she will make good decisions. Not that I made all good decisions. I'm sure some of my high school friends can remember. But, knowing that she would be raised in a good environment and she would learn good values and she would always make good decisions. You talk about an ultimate smack in the face, that we can't prevent obstacles. We can't prevent even evil, unfortunately, from coming into their lives, because my daughter ended up in addiction. And it shocked me. It's still shocking to this day. And she's been gone for 10 years. But the point is not that I'm here giving all this great parenting advice because things turned out so perfectly. But I think that's the other thing, too, that parents have to remember, is that the outcome doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't a good parent, right? I mean, I know so many excellent parents whose sons and daughters wound up in addiction or other situations. And, you just think, unfortunately, we think that we can control it all. We think that, it's really about us. And if they turn out well, we give ourselves a pat on the back. And if they don't, then we beat ourselves up. But I think ultimately, whatever happens in their lives, there are certain things that we're just responsible for teaching them. Obviously, first of all, how about consequences to their actions? This is how they learn. This is how they learn courage. This is how they learn, A equals B, 1 + 1 = 2, right? You throw a fit when you're a little kid, you don't get to go do the fun thing. I mean, that's just common sense, right? And so I don't really know when this began, but at some point, obviously, a generation decided that, our parents were too tough on us, so we're going to be a lot easier on our kids. And in a lot of cases, they probably were. There are a lot of good things about parenting these days because they talk a lot more to their kids and explain things. I love that. That wasn't my experience at all. And I think that could have been really super helpful. But I also think we've kind of gone into this place where we just don't want them to have any pain. And unfortunately, you can't avoid pain for your kids. It's just not possible. Why? Why can't you remove all these obstacles? Well, first of all, you're not going to be with them 24/7. So I remember one time, this was before Jamie died and she was in her addiction. And I remember seeing this mom post to someone else that, how did you not know where your kids were? I always knew where my kids were. And I literally wanted to jump in and say, stop it, knock it off. You did not. I mean, really, went to the bathroom with them in high school. So we can't prevent life from happening. There's evil in the world. There are bad things. There are drugs. There are bad influences. But all we can do is do the best we can to instill everything that we can in them. And I think one thing that a lot of parents don't realize right now is that they're not doing anything to hurt their kids. If they knew that, if they sat and really thought about it, they wouldn't want them to not learn how to be courageous. But that's what we're doing when we're coddling them, when we're protecting them, when we're hiring lawyers for their mistakes. I think that now that's not to say, no, I don't want to get into the whole lawyer thing because, yeah, I did hire a lawyer one time for Jamie, but that's another story. But anyway, you get my point that I think that the situation is that we are really trying to help them have easier lives. And I mean, who wouldn't want that for their kids? The problem is that you need to really think about, if you're in this situation, what were the ways in which you learned the most? Mistakes, right? Adversity, falling down, making bad choices, and then having to live through the consequences of those choices. That's how we learn. That's how we learn to change our behavior. That's how we learn to self-correct. It's how we learn to be strong, to get back up and try again. And so I really think that these good intentions could be hurting kids in the long run. Adversity is a part of life. It is unavoidable, and it is absolutely necessary and essential for anyone. Because even if you can, protect your kids all the way through whatever age, then there's at some point they're going off in the world. I don't think they're taking mommy and daddy with them out into their grown-up life. So, I mean, adversity is just required, period. There's just no getting around it. We just can't remove every obstacle, but we can teach them how to stand up and fight, how to say, I made a bad mistake, but I'm not a bad person, and help them to keep going. And I think really the very best way we do that isn't even by telling them, yes, it should be with discipline and it should be with consequences. But one of the very best ways that we can show our kids is that when adversity comes into our lives, we show them how to stand up and fight. We show them how to overcome, how to learn from, if there's a mistake involved, how to learn, how to not just survive, but how to really take this obstacle, this adversity, whatever has happened to us, take it and turn it into good. I can't think of a better lesson that we could teach the next generation.